With the year 2027 gradually approaching, various stakeholders and opposition political parties have been deliberating on possible names that can lead their campaign to unseat the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC. Lately, the reported 2027 ambition of former President Goodluck Jonathan has split the People's Democratic Party into two camps, with the stakeholders holding divergent positions on the issue. While some party members believe Jonathan should not contest against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, various political pressure groups drummed up support for the ex-leader. However, if former President Goodluck Jonathan decides to run, what are the chances of him creating an upset against President Bola Tinubu? Joining us on this show to discuss this is Professor Udenta, a political strategist and a founding national secretary of the Alliance for Democracy, AD. Professor Udenta, good morning and good to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Dr. Ruben. After an inexplicable hiatus, I once more humbly present myself before the irrepressible gang of three. And I do hope we're going to have an engaging, enlightening, and productive conversation.
Okay, Prof, although I'm not hearing you, maybe it's a problem with the talk back here, but if you can hear me, that would be fine. I might as well just go ahead and ask you.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
You can hear me.
I can hear you very clearly.
Okay. That's
very well.
Now, what
are you hearing me now?
About 2027 and all these debates, conversations, permutations about whether or not President Goodluck Jonathan should run, and whether or not, if he decides to run, he will stand a chance against President Tinubu. Since those who are encouraging him to run are saying, oh, he's the best candidate that can get President Tinubu out of the place. He's from the South. He will only do one term and all of that. What do you think? What do you advise?
Somehow, for some reason, a spectre is haunting the Nigerian political space. That spectre is much more acute within the ranks of the dominant or the hegemonic power bloc. This power bloc is composed of top members of the parliament, presidential power brokers, including noisy aides of the president, distracted ministers, and lawyers with dubious agenda. That spectre is Jonathan's second coming. You'll recall that precisely 10 years ago, slightly more than 10 years ago, that historic moment that former President Jonathan picked that phone and made a call to late President Buhari, then General Muhammad Buhari. I lost you one. Congratulations. Set a tone for a new direction, a new conversation about democracy and its consolidation in Africa, not just Nigeria. Became the brightest moment of the reawakening of democratic sensibilities and consciousness. 10 years down the line, as a global statesman and a leading African figure, the news is all over town. The former President Jonathan may likely seek a second term, even though he has not spoken directly. That is why that's why the rank of the power brokers are frightened. And it is understandable for objective reasons why there is confusion in their ranks. I'll ask the question to, you three guys. When ministers, party leaders of the APC, and presidential spokespersons give advice to PDP, they've already branded death. Not to feed Jonathan because of some legal consequences. It looks as if they're taking Panadol for other people's headache. The critical problem is that the second term of the president is going to be a referendum. It will not be an aspirational moment in which, oh, this is what I'm going to do for the country. I'm a newcomer in the game. I'm freshly minted. 4 years is enough time for the country to assess him, to say, if you're coming back 2027, this is a scorecard. 2 years plus after the macroeconomic shocks of Naira floating and subsidy removal, the land is still ravaged by poverty and hunger and insecurity. That means if a Jonathan is to be a candidate of the opposition party, especially the PDP, he was the last president of that party, it's going to be a tall order for the president and his team to win. For the simple reason that they're going to run on your term. At that time, it's going to be a shabby, clueless, incompetent term of office. That being the case, it is better to shut down that conversation quickly, to declare the former president possibly constitutionally debarred from contesting, and then to create some sense of chaos and disorder within the ranks of his party. Now, let's talk briefly about the PDP. Ruben, Rufai, and Ayo, for over a year and a half, almost 2 years, the party was pronounced dead, racked by internal factionalization and contradictions that would never find its bearing. Therefore, the party was written off. Now, the same party that was written off is now being asked not to fill the former president because the party has rebounded, recreated, and reborn. That took a long time in coming. I'm not a member of the party, but I'm a close watcher of party politics in Nigeria and a student of our history. The rebirth of PDP was a difficult process, marshaled by three forces. The Governors Forum, led by the Governor of Bauchi State, the chairman of that forum, the BOT, led by Senator Mwabara, and the rebranded NWC, led by Ilea Damagos, Ambassador Damagos, the chairman. With the stage coming back of the secretary of the party, the tone was set for party rebranding. 3 or 4 next, a convention just around the corner, and possibility that out of the ashes of his previous, disastrous moment of the past year and a half, the party is set to become coherent once more. If that happens, and President Jonathan, on the heels of the persuaders who are very agitated that they should come into the fray and save the nation, almost on the edge of the precipice, that's why they find this particular phenomenon is rankling the ranks of the APC and the presidentialist insiders. If it happens, my suspicion is that it's not only the internal factors of his competence and ability, maybe to do what he did, decade plus ago. Stabilize the economy, the foreign exchange. It was very low, naira to dollar. Grew the economy to be the biggest in Africa. Fought Boko Haram to a standstill. Ruben, you were there. A standstill. The internal domestic franchise was completely masculated. The size broken into pieces. The sources of fund destroyed. And many other things one can keep talking about if the time is available. If he's to come back with 10 years of deep experience and exposure in international politics, the context, therefore, in 2027 will no longer be a national context, becomes an international context. That means the eyes of the world will be on the country. That means anybody's going to leverage on the apparatuses of the state. We're going to leverage on the army, the DSA, the police, the INEC. We have a pause because there'll be acute and intense scrutiny of the electoral process, which may be unprecedented in our history and possibly not to be witnessed if Jonathan is not going to contest. These, for me, are some of the reasons why there is visible panic in the ranks of the other side. The other second person who I'm sure is creating that sense of panic was the former candidate of the Labour 2023. I didn't mention him too.
All right.
Because he was a member of the PDP for a long time. And if indeed the party, as I say, is reborn and himself is equally part of that mix, either him or Jonathan has the capacity and everything it takes.
Professor, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, thank you. I love you.
Yes, I can hear you.
You always come on the show with a lot of passion. But let me come in here to just ask you, and I hear how you've passionately...
A little bit...
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. It's better now.
Okay, excellent. So you've come to talk about how, the chances of former President Goodluck Jonathan, if he decides to run. I think it's important to mention that he hasn't yet declared his intentions
Absolutely.
as to whether or not he would run. But if he does decide to run, based on the pressure from different parties, with the structure that the APC currently have, and the power of incumbency, do you think any party currently has the structure to accommodate a viable opponent to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
You see, APC structure is an inorganic structure. It's not an organic structure. Organic structure is a structure that is deep-rooted within the people. That is from ground up. That means you take out a governor of PDP or any other party and absorb that governor into your rank. Have you absorbed the people? Have you taken the infrastructure, public support, or public anger or discontentment? Have you taken that into consideration? We saw what happened in 2023. It was a wake-up call for APC and even PDP. When a candidate of the Labour Party, without the so-called infrastructure of support, without governors, without senators, without reps, without even local government apparatus, gave everybody a run for their money. Some even stay content. We don't know who won that election. So APC structure you're talking about is a structure that is elitist in content. It is just the top 110%, parading themselves as leaders of the parties across the country. Even PDP as a party with some difficulties over the years has enormous structure, maybe more than even APC, because it's been deeply embedded since 1998. What it needs is just something like a shot in the arm, that convention in November, and the party is roaring back. Every home, every village, every ward in the country has a PDP presence. So if the former president who has not spoken, actually, whether he's going to contest or not, we have to take up that challenge and use that platform. There'll be, I suspect, a rush from across the other opposition parties, even from Labour, even from ADC, even those sitting on the fence, even members of the APC. And the reasons are very simple. One, you said it, Dr. Ruben, in your introduction. A guaranteed one term, which, of course, P2B has been screaming about because he knows the importance of that. 2023, Southern emerged as a president. The indication there is that a Southern will continue to 2031. That's why the PDP strategic zoning to the south, led by the Governors Forum, was a very important decision, a very important, courageous decision. But a Northerner may find it extraordinarily difficult this time around to do it. But the simple reason is that the South is already going to become a cohesive front. If you don't have a strong person like the former President Jonathan or P2B to contend with Bola Ahmed Tinubu, then it takes the entire South. If you have President Jonathan, for example, and maybe there's no B in the ticket, the entire Southeast and South-Side is gone from the APC. No doubt about it. He can put it today and he can do a town hall and bring me on board for that conversation. If P2B is going to contest and maybe former President Jonathan is out of the race, the same two zones will be completely out of the reach of APC, in spite of those parading at the top. And for the North, they will settle this dispute. That's why PDP zoned it to the South. The North will settle this dispute. How will they settle this dispute? Anybody who has ears on the ground, who understands the tremors of politics and these tectonic shifts in the country today, will understand that it's not we heave for former President Jonathan, for very good reasons. One, his liberal disposition, the fact that he considered the election easily and walked away. He grew himself into a powerful global brand, into a powerful African leader, building consensus across nations, holding election meetings and so on, and then doing monitoring and conflict resolution. And again, his record on service, far better than what we have today, even the past 8 years of Buhari. So the North will take that single decision. We want a liberal-minded president who will not hoard power, who will not grab it and run, who will be inclusive.
Okay. Albeit all these points you've raised, Prof, are anecdotal. We considered the election anecdotal.
Absolutely.
You've not been able to empirically weigh the marginal disposition of the love based on opinion polls, so there's no weighted averages as regards that. He goes for international press conferences and looks at the election, does peace mediation. Yes, some soft power disposition, but it's not being weighted across the North. No empirical statistics to that. And that's why I say all of this, albeit anecdotal. You know, he's liberal-minded and everything. Yeah, that's not being weighted across board in the North. So you don't have like a perception index to it. So it's very easy to say yes for the sake of emotional nostalgia. It's a proposition that will sail. But you also think quickly that the North that gave Tinubu close to over 50% of the vote in the last election will make a quick pivot because Jonathan is now in the fray or considering the fray. That's number one. Number two, we act like, that the APC does not have strong footing in the North and majority of the governors will not hold true as regards the electionary process. Number three, we also act like, yes, the North understands the zeitgeist of the nation. Most of the arguments I've heard from the North is also about positioning for when power will come back to the North, because we've built a very asinine system, and I must say in this country, that only feels that when power is residing with somebody from my region, I'm happy about it. And when power goes to the other region, we're just waiting for power to come back. And it's been a dichotomy, between the North and the South all this while. I want you to challenge those talking points I've put forward, albeit an a priori, Prof.
Okay. I get it. Anecdotal. when people try to even reduce the import of anecdotal evidence in politics, it means there is a lack of concentrated attention on what is called trend lines. Trend lines are not exactly scientific in terms of measurement. Trend lines are not scientific in terms of predictability of numbers, 2%, 10%, 50%. It never works anywhere. But trend line is how do people behave given certain conditions. If former President Jonathan was to contest the election and there was quietude in the land, in the ranks of the APC, from the presidential spokespersons, from party leaders of the APC, from ministers who abandoned their responsibilities, from lawyers who were somehow engaged or recruited, it means somebody's worried. It's not me that is saying it anecdotally. People are worried about his coming. And they have done their mathematics. They've done their own evidence-based understanding of the situation. They have possibly looked at the numbers to say, if he comes on board, what will likely be the deep challenges to our own person? And if that happens, what do we do? Do we simply write him off? They have the right to write him off and say, we welcome you on board. Come on, President Jonathan, like you posted out the 3 issues posers you raised. We're going to smash through you and decapitate you politically. So we don't care about you and your party, but they didn't do that. They are busy giving him excuses, giving him reasons why he shouldn't contest. There was even a banner on the Nation newspaper, front page. That banner is what? Why President Jonathan will not contest in order not to break Southern unity. The charge of Southern solidarity is resonating across the board. It's not me, Rufa, it is them pushing that narrative. Because they know that if it comes on board the Southern unity, the purported, bogus, mythologized Southern unity will be broken into pieces. They know that. And they know too. They're deep political players. I'm an analyst, but I'm the founding National Secretary of Alliance for Democracy. I caught my teeth deep in the politics of the East, the West, and the North. The biggest players in Eastern Nigerian politics are part of my own grooming. The biggest players in the Southwest, almost all of them now late. Abraham Adesanya, Uncle Bola Ige, the late Tayo Adebanjo, groomed me in the North from Awoniyi to Shiroma, to Shinkafi, to Mahmoud Waziri, to Loya and the rest of them. I'm deeply knowledgeable about the politics of the North. It's not just anecdotal evidence. We talk to people, we hear their mindset. We sit down with senators, we sit down with governors, we sit down with opinion molders. Those from the civic centers and those on traditional ranks, we know what they're saying. But the moment for them to vocalize it hasn't come. Because we may enter another phase of the conversation. Why is the Dogoras and all the Namanis and so on being put together by a serving chief of staff of the president to rally support for the president? Why are they doing rallies across the country, including the Villa? Because there's a sense of panic. That panic is that 2027 will be a day of reckoning. That record becomes more acute if Jonathan is to contest that election.
Okay, Professor.
So it is not just a question of anecdotal evidence or some sense of nostalgia. It is that the trend lines suggest strongly and most accurately there's panic in the rank of the other side.
Okay, Professor Udenta, beyond the politics of personalities and political parties, the major concern of Nigerians is that what will 2027 general election look like? Will it be a free and fair election, or will it be an election that will look like the recent local government elections and by-elections in some states of the Federation? What kind of reform would you like to see?
Okay.
Particularly now that INEC is going to face a transition. The tenure of Professor Yakub Mahmoud is going to end, latest by the end of this month. So there's going to be a change of order in that institution. But our concern is that would this Tinubu administration be able to deliver free and fair election in 2027? Do you have any concerns, or you think it's nothing to worry about?
Oh, I do have grave concerns. The Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, with Dr. Sam Amadi as the director, with myself as a distinguished fellow of that school, there was a recent national action plan on electoral reform that was made public. I advise and actually encourage Nigerians to seek it out there, get a copy of it there, and go through it to see point by point the institutional, methodological, and organizational kind of reforms we expect, both within the internal environment of election management, which is INEC and its internal organs, and the external environment, the ones you're talking about, the police and the security agencies on the one hand, governmental apparatus, even the judiciary, and so on, how they will behave in this election. We have not only on this program, earlier in the months and years past, or one other platforms have been part of, to talk about the hybrid nature of this government, almost like competitive authoritarianism we have before us, emasculating democratic spaces and shutting down civic centers. Take this, they bring back our guest center. We find it the Unity Fountain. Under Jonathan, it was there for people to make all the noise, even bring his government down. Today it is gated by the DSS. You can't even go there and protest. Since the end SARS under Buhari and then end hunger and bad governance under Bola Tinubu, what happened? So understand that at the 4 key domains of protection of guardrails of democracy, civic centers are shrinking and depleting, being depleted. The media is being haunted, including asking them to yield their bank accounts, some of them. Lebanon has been accused of terror financing, and parties have actually been put pressure on. So we understand that acutely. It's a duty of Nigerians to rally round to know there is a menace of illiberalism and authoritarianism lurking in the shadows. In 2027, we can't just allow INEC to behave as it did in the past. Remember that 15 years ago, there was a powerful movement called mandate protection. No matter how you reform the electoral system, the electoral apparatus, how you tighten the tools of regulations and rules, if you don't have robust political participation, engagement by voters. For example, every major party contesting should have 2 agents in every polling precinct. Well-educated, well-positioned, and well-thought, with a smartphone to record result. 2, party mobilization should occur at every rank, and people must demand for their right. Again, if you add that to the reform, add that to maybe a robust international and local domestic monitoring, and then possibly civic engagement in the next 1 year, 1.5 years, educating the people, warning about dangers that we put our democracy if we lose this coming election. Possibly. We may not have a perfect election, but we may have an election in which the ruling party will be so frightened or cautious enough to allow the will of the people to prevail the way Jonathan did in 2015.
Well,
it's a work in progress, so I cannot say here and predict with certainty how it will end.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Udenta, for joining us.